So díomh a cáirde agus tá anfáilte romh chuig an Geardlinn Gréis anseo ar na campi Saoirigh. Tásúla gom agus níl dáta gom go mhainigh sibh tagnamh agus tarbha as takeíocht agus comhairle na láithreoirí an seo an Tráthnóna. We wish you the very best of luck with your 2022 camps and assure you of our continued support as you plan and prepare for your camp programs in your respective settings. What stands out most about this programme is the commitment of teachers. The DEIS summer provision depends on this commitment. A key feature of the camp is connectedness, students remaining connected and secure in a familiar environment and in the company of significant adults in their lives. Summer camps offer students a chance to showcase their talents and to grow in confidence in the company of their peers and fellow students. Their voices should be heard in the design and the delivery of the camps programme. The ultimate goal is to explore with them the idea of learning for enjoyment. These students owe their love of learning in the security of their own comfortable and familiar learning environments to you, the teachers, overseers and facilitators. In our feedback from camps through the years, the overwhelming message that we receive is the impact that these camps have on their students and the promotion of their well-being and confidence, but also the benefits gained by teachers and facilitators in witnessing the magic of these camps. They're an exemplar of fun and positivity, which underscores authentic learning. From the Summer Camps team, we issue our most sincere thanks to all for your commitment and dedication to these students who are at highest risk in our education system. And we thank you for being patient with our quick turnaround this year. To the large team behind the scenes in the camps programme, I owe a debt of thanks to Alma Doyle and Angela O'Dea in the department for all their work and support of the programme, to our PDS team, Rory Collins, David O'Callaghan, who's with us tonight, Joseph Macan Umara, Mortin O'Riordan, who's also with us tonight, and Croher O'Leary, PDS Mila Weekas Steve, as an Olvacon, agus an Upper Brescia, or son na Campi Saoirigh, Berla agus Gaeilge. Godahi agus Alan Freshen, Mila Weekas as an Takeíocht, agus an Comhairle at Hugturd the Ashkahori na Campi. To Kathy, Kira and Alan for the input this evening, sharing their experiences as camp facilitators and offering ideas and exemplars of activities and practices that have added to their camp experiences in their settings. And to our inspector, Mary Dunn, who's integrally involved in the planning and design phase of the camps, and in particular for her work on the teacher's handbook and the guideline documents. To my colleague, Ulta McMahuna in Dublin West for his commitment of time and energy behind the scenes in designing and delivering the camp programmes for schools. And finally, but not least, to Joan Shanky in Navan Education Centre and Siobhan Kerr in Dublin West, who worked tirelessly in the background to ensure the smooth rollout of each and every camp and campa. So to steer you towards tonight's proceedings, which will be introduced by Rory Collins of the PDST, and just to spotlight for you at this stage that there's also a wellbeing strand to the camps programme, and this training is delivered by NEPS. It's provided in recorded format and is available to you via the Education Centre websites. I'll place the link for this directly in the chat for your use in a few minutes' time. We do welcome questions, as you know. We know that you may have many. We ask that you might wait until a little later to post these, as they may just be answered throughout the session. We're happy to moderate all the questions, however, and provide you with direct feedback and answers as we make our way through the webinar. So, Rory, without any further delay, I invite you now to talk through tonight's format and to point to some of our foundational materials. Thank you, Rory.
Thank you very much, Aideen. And this is just to give everyone an overview of what this webinar tonight is going to entail. What we hope to do is to share ideas with you, to direct you towards useful resources that you can use to facilitate your camps, and to answer any queries you may have through the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. We'll be discussing all the supports that are available to you as you plan the summer camp, amongst which are two documents that you can see on screen: the Summer Camp Programme 2022 Teacher's Handbook and the My Summer Camp 2022 Learning Journey, which is the pupil self-assessment booklet. So in the Summer Camp Teacher's Handbook, it's been designed to assist you as you plan and prepare to facilitate the summer course. It supports the effective teaching and learning with an emphasis on playful and engaging learning experiences. And there are suggestions here for practical assessment strategies that you can use during the camp as well, including the My Summer Camp booklet, which is a self-assessment book for the students. All of these resources are going to be available on the Padlets we're going to be sharing with you later on tonight. And they're also, of course, available through the Navan Education Centre and Dublin West Education Centre websites. Throughout the summer camp program, it's been designed to support and encourage schools to draw on their best teaching and learning and assessment practices, and providing students with high quality learning experiences in their classrooms and in outdoor learning environments. And later on in the webinar, we're going to be looking at the potential of different school and local environments to be incorporated into the camp, the summer camps as well. We recognize that pupils learn best by being actively involved in the learning process and by connecting what they learn in their camp with their learning experiences in school. We hope that these camps will, as well as being a playful and enjoyable experience for the children, that they will enhance their sense of well-being, their sense of belonging, and that they will leave the camps with a shared sense of achievement, having been involved from the ground up as co-designers of the camp. Parents and guardians are, of course, encouraged to support the camp in a meaningful and interactive way as well. And we'll be chatting a little bit about how that can be facilitated. And of course, as always, there's a strong emphasis on mathematics and language learning, be it Trí Gaeilge, Trí Bhéarla, throughout the summer camp program. And this webinar and the various resources we're going to share with you, they're very much in line with the primary maths curriculum and the primary language curriculum, and their key messages and key methodologies as well. So that's the overview of what we hope to achieve this evening, and I'm going to hand you over now to Ultan.
I thought fáiltis fithir of chéine nacht, Misha Ultan McMahon steward in Unad Idachis Pala here. I'd like to, I suppose, reiterate what Aidan has already said and thanking everybody involved this evening and welcoming everybody. When I look at the amount of participants, we're up at 535, but there's over 530 people willing to come on of a sunny summer's evening for the sake of the children in their schools would actually fill you with a huge amount of enthusiasm. And I hope that for your commitment this evening, you get an awful lot from the presentation. I would like to bevalm fáilt if we let a riv nadine han sa nacht a vase a den of campa Trí Gaeilge, maar dun vlian shot of wine, maar grammar codenike kermachan fogra, ha dina an sa on dachin al campa nacht. So fáilte riv nadine ta den of campa Trí Gaeilge koma, a big count a reached sniha mairach. So I just, by way of introduction to those who are helping us out here tonight, we have three practicing camp organisers. We've Kathy Butler from St. Joseph's in Longford. We have Alan Nelson from St. Joseph's in Dundalk, and we have Ciara Rowley from Atimus National School in County Mayo. So if you start in Dundalk, you can really go right across the country, east to west, with those three schools. From PDSD, we have Crahor O'Leary and David O'Callaghan. David is principal in Scolvere in Dundalk, and Crahor is Iasach Dughaskol Oni Hurish in Carlow. We are very fortunate also to have the expertise of Dr. Dr. Dahi O'Murchu, and Dahi will bring us through a lot of the minutiae around the organisation of camps that you'll need to, I suppose, use to clear your head before we get to the important work of the pedagogy involved in the camps. And to that end, on the next slide, just to show you the aims and the learning outcomes for this session, which are important. I suppose the overall aim of the session is to support you, that you can successfully plan and run a summer camp in your school. Look, I have no doubt that as teachers, you're well able to run summer camps. You know the children in your schools and you know your area so well at this stage. Nobody is better placed to plan in accordance to your school's unique context than you yourselves. But what we can give you here this evening, I suppose, is, as I said, the organizational stuff from Dahi, but also an idea of the vision, the principles and the domains involved in running a campus hour or summer camp. We'll explore some teaching approaches, some preparation approaches, and indeed some assessment approaches also. And then we'll look at opportunities for resources and ideas along the way. So I'd like to reiterate that again, that nobody knows your school setting better than yourselves, and nobody knows the kids in your schools better than you do yourselves. This is just a steer for you guys. And I hope that your commitment this evening, we're over 550 people now, that your commitment this evening will be rewarded by a great help for your summer camps and your Compy So without further ado, I will hand on. I was going to live illy.
And Rory, if you can move on there, please, just like Gay Byrne on the Late Late Show, I must ask Rory's forgiveness because he'll be moving on. Listen, let's start from where we're at right now. I think the important thing is we all breathe out, and then maybe we breathe in. It's June. Did we think we'd actually get here? 2 years ago, we were here. And man, those schools among us that are now listening to me, we had a different situation, didn't we? I mean, we were there and God, we were coming together and we were talking about COVID. Was it going to go ahead in 2019, 20, 21? What would we do? Where were we at? How could we possibly do it? And the fact that you're still standing right now at this particular moment, I think is a massive testament to yourselves and to your schools. Resilience is a huge thing. I love the fact that Aideen spoke about, we're talking about numeracy, literacy, and well-being. The teacher's well-being is very important also in the camps. The numeracy, literacy, well-being, and the Compy, come on. It's very important that we take care of ourselves. And the whole essence of the vision and message is simple. Let us take care of our school communities. Our DEIS school communities have suffered. And now on top of that, we have a huge amount of Ukrainian children coming into our schools, which is putting huge extra effort. I have to say that the principals that were on the news last night brought out a lot about equality and inequality. But we're not going to get into that because for our camps, we're going to provide what I think is most important, the message. And it's been our message for the last 2 to 3 years. Is Féidir Ling. Yes, we can. And the reason I know we can is because we've had the privilege of being a principal, being a teacher for so many years and knowing so many of you, and it's a huge privilege to do this. But what is our message tonight? Our message is to foster that sense of belonging, that sense of experience of the pupil, that creativity, that inclusion, that belonging, and to do that in a playful way, to design our lessons so that when we have them during the day, and hey guys, this year, we can actually hug and we can actually get them out. We can actually do a trust sculla. Whoa, we can actually do a trust laurelina. There are things we can do now for the first time that we've been unable to do. So in planning, and I'll come back to this time we have for planning that's given to every camp. Let us look at the well-being of the whole school community, engagement with education in a unique way that is around playfulness, active play, active learning, and that whole emphasis across whatever we're designing in any way we do it. And those considerations have to be there. So whether it's sport or whether it's the trip to the library, whether it's a school trip we're going on, or bringing parents in for the big fashion show, the music show, the camp song, listening, no matter what it is, let's make it an incredible journey this year. Look, the department will do whatever they can. We'll talk about the administration later on, but our vision and our key message is Féidir Ling. Yes, we can. And we can do that together. That's why Alan will be there and Navan Education Centre, Aideen and Joan, why Ultim will be there and Siobhan and myself in Dublin West, why we have drop boxes for you. And we'll get back to these. But right now, think well-being, play, together, whole school community, family, and we will work our way through the other things. And that's the simple message. And guys, seriously, big hug, big hug. First time we can do it in a couple of years. And I know you're wreck tired. I know you are. Gorov Mila Mahagev. So Rory, on you go, let the hug.
And good evening, folks. So just to follow on very nicely from what Dahi was saying, if we immediately look at the resources that are available to support you as you plan for the summer camp, as Dahi mentioned, we do have a Padlet for the DEIS Summer Camp programme, which is coming up on the screen at the moment. And the link to that Padlet will be shared in the chat box now shortly. But if you open that Padlet, you'll notice that there are a number of different columns in terms of the resources available. We have literacy, numeracy, Gaeilge, playful learning, well-being, which is very important. And in that column, you will find a link to the NEPS webinar that Rory has mentioned earlier on. But you'll also notice on this Padlet that all of your admin documents that you will need for the DEIS Summer Camp programme are there, close at hand. And there's also something which I really want to spotlight, which is a Dropbox that Dahi has put together, which has a wealth of resources that will really help and support you as you plan for your camp. So just, as I said, the link is in the chat box there. So I would really encourage you to have a look at that as you plan and prepare. So thanks, Rory. We'll move on to have a look at our overarching principles for the summer camp. So many of you will be familiar with the graphic that's just coming up on the screen. You'll notice it from the summer camp handbook, and it really is the core and the essence of our summer camp program. So in the center of the graphic, you'll notice that we have some overarching principles. So the first one is that language learning occurs in a playful and interactive way, as we've heard so far already. The next consideration is that pupils are seen as co-designers of the summer camp. Learning, teaching, and assessment reflect an impact on school practice. And again, that's a consideration there, is that you could be thinking back of your school's DEIS plan, because there's lots of great things happening there already. So I suppose it's important to remember and to recognize that. And then the last overarching principle is the pupil's well-being and sense of belonging are central to the camp. But we're joined by a number of teachers that have been, planning this for a number of years now, and I'm really interested in bringing Ciara and Kathy in at this point, just maybe to give us a few thoughts and insights into the whole concept of having pupils as co-designers of the camp. So Ciara, would you have any thoughts that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, hello everyone. We would have talked to the children in advance of the camp. I was the overseer, and I talked to my own class and talked about maybe some of the resources we had in the school. The children were interested in using ICT. We had some nice resources like Lego We Do and Microbits and so on that they would have had some experience of in class, but never long enough for them. So they expressed interest in having more time to learn, to maybe go have more free play with some of create some of that. And they also wanted more outdoor activities. So we just talked to them. I talked to them about that, and then later brought some of those ideas to the teachers and talked about maybe more resources we needed to purchase in order to kind of do what the children wanted, and then also to tap into the skills that some of the new teachers were bringing to the camp as well.
Thanks very much, Ciara. That's fantastic. I'm not sure if Kathy would like to share some thoughts with us in terms of pupils as co-designers.
Yeah, thanks, David. Quite similar to Ciara, we got children to do it in a written format. So we're a much larger school, I suppose, so it'll be a little bit more challenging. But we got them to fill out an application form, which they would have brought home, got parents to sign, and then filled in their suggestions for activities at the bottom of the form. And insofar as is practicable or possible, we incorporated those activities into our plan for the week. And immediately you have that bit of buy-in from the students when we suggested this and that it's happening. So that was a very positive part of it.
Thanks very much, Kathy, and it's great to hear the practical examples of that involvement. So thanks very much for sharing those. You'll notice around the outside of the graphic that we have on screen that our overarching principles, they're also set out in relation to 4 domains. And these domains are really 4 considerations which would be relevant for you as you prepare for the summer camp. So we're talking there about learner outcomes, about playful learning experiences, about varied learning environments, as we've just heard, and also about camp management. So over the next number of slides, we're going to explore each one of those. But I suppose the next thing that we'd like to talk about briefly is the role of parents and parental involvement as you plan and prepare for the summer camp program in your own context. So there are a number of considerations in terms of parental involvement currently on the screen, but I'd like to just ask Alan to maybe share your experience in terms of involving parents in your school's summer camp.
Thank you, David. Hi all. Yeah, I'm very pleased to be able to speak about parental involvement for the first time in a number of years. For me, I've been working on camps for almost 10 years in my own school, and parental involvement was always a hugely important aspect and element of the summer camps. It's really, really important that we get a chance to involve parents, and what it does is it allows us as teachers in DEIS schools to build a positive relationship, a positive rapport with even the most marginalised or non-engaging families, by getting them involved in summer camps, by bringing them into the school during a time when school is otherwise quiet. They can see the kids every day having a great time. They realise, I suppose, some of them maybe have a negative experience of school in the past, and if you can bring them in during a camp and the kids are really involved, engaged in playful learning experiences, and they can see that the environment has changed and it's different now. And once you've done that, I mean, you can think of any way possible to get them involved. Things we would have done over the years is bring them in to give out lunches. You can bring them in beforehand, and as you do with the kids in the pre-planning stage, allowing them to vote on activities. You can do this with parents as well. Meet them on the first morning, let them know, give them an outline of the week, what's going to happen, why it's going to happen, why this camp is being funded, and your intentions for the week. And then also you can have that final day show, but I wouldn't leave it until then to do that. I'd obviously try and do this beforehand, because the more you get them involved, the better. And what we'd like to do then is also make sure that you use this opportunity to build up that positive relationship. This relationship will then serve you well when it comes to September. If you've built up a good relationship with parent X, and then young Paddy, then he needs an IEP in September, or he needs a behaviour plan, you'll know then, once you've got the parents involved early and let them see in the summer camp that they're well liked and the engagement is there. Then if you need to bring them in during September for a more difficult situation, that trust has been built up, that relationship is there. So I really would encourage all teachers to use your summer camps as a means of getting your parents more involved in their child's education, and it'll be a positive experience for everyone as a result. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Alan. There's some really fantastic considerations there about connecting and indeed reconnecting with some parents, and they're a really valuable part of this whole process. So thank you for sharing. I'd just like to pass you back now to Dahi, who's going to look at some frequently asked questions that come up. Thanks, folks.
Again, good morning, David. The important thing is that both education centres have put together, based upon our communication with all of you right now, a very comprehensive FAQ, and it's Asperger's Ascaiga. And I think it will cover, and we believe it covers about 95 to 96% of the questions you come up with, because it's important. There are questions which come in, and I think that we need to address them. For example, one of the big questions came up was, when can the camps be run? Well, I think you've all gotten permission to go ahead with them right now, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Duh. Sorry, Dahi, it's okay. The reality is that some of you are actually starting, shall we say, into anything from June the 20th on. Some of you are beginning the first Monday in July, and the camps will be run up right towards the times which were indicated towards the end of August. So the camps can be run at any time. Indeed, most of you there have chosen 2 camps. But again, if in doubt, I suppose the gospel is simple here. Go back to the original document that has come out from the department, and remember the email which is provided on the FAQ into the summer camps program. That's vital, and the links will be there in both education centres on the FAQ documents that will be all in the drop boxes or will be made available through Padlet. Everything you will need is there, and especially for the new schools, just to say to you, breathe out again. This may sound complicated. It's not. It's about whole school communities. It's about what David spoke about, what Alan has referred to, and indeed Kathy and Kira, bringing your DEIS camp to life. giving it life, giving it air in an environment which is playful through, I suppose, play learning, problem-based learning, etc. And the important thing is how many teachers are involved. Well, again, this year, I want to thank the department. Thank you, Mr. Eastwood. Sorry, that's Barry McGuigan. The fact is that we, again, have an overseer for all the camps. And we'll come back to that in a moment. But the overseer is not a teacher on the camp. The overseer's job is to be an overseer. Now, believe it or not, that overseeing job can be shared between two permanent teachers in the school. And that can be put into the, for example, when it comes down to getting paid, and the department have promised us this year, so don't shoot Alan and don't shoot me and don't shoot anyone else. The department have promised that the EasyNet system, as we call the OLCS, will be a lot simpler, a lot easier this year to put the information in. And indeed, they've said that they hope that the payment will come a lot quicker than last year. On the QT, so does everyone else out there, because a lot of it was delayed. And I know from speaking to some of you this year found it difficult to get teachers because of what happened last year. So we put it up to the department to hold on to the word and to make that EasyNet system a lot easier to access. And putting that information in is also there. So you have one teacher per 12, 2 per 24, and 3 per 36, plus the overseer. And the overseer job, as you know, in the last 2 years has been basically like a gatekeeper, keeping everyone out. But I think it's more so now ensuring that we've children attending the camp, keeping the punctuality going. Indeed, many camps keep 1 or 2 spare kids. And why? Because if some children don't turn up, offer it to others. You are prioritizing through those children most vulnerable, most in need. And again, with our newcomer kids, with the children that have come into the school, depending on the camps that you're running, you are prioritizing where you're at from the numeracy, literacy, and well-being. So how many preparation hours? There are 10 hours for preparation, and most of those are normally spent, as Alan and Kathy, I suppose, and Ciara have said, in communicating with the children, with the team, with your homeschool community liaison teacher, and with the principal to ensure that you have a camp that is there for the whole school community. And that's why you'll have Marhus, the actual booklet, which is your camp journey, where the children can put in their information each day, the parents can respond to it. So you're promoting that sense of literacy, that sense of the camp living outside the school. As Alan said, parents being a vibrant part of the camp, which has always been important. So Rory, if we can move on to the next one, please, it would be great. So what are we saying here? We're talking about the fact that the principal and the homeschool community liaison coordinator and the teachers and the overseers all have that role, as the children do. Ask them what they want. What are they looking for? We'll come on in the next slide to a sample of a kind of a chlorama or a timetable for you. And even though COVID is still here, but the fact is that we must therefore be mindful at all times that we're also creating a healthy learning environment and that we establish that. And that's why I suppose we come on to it. When the students are getting €6 per day per student, which is €30 for the week, and that is the only thing. There's no extra funding there for food and for extra meals this year, even though I would say, having spoken to 1 or 2 of those companies that provide the food during the year, some of them are willing to do a deal if you want to get onto them and get something sent to the school each day. And indeed, if you have funding left over, by speaking to the principal and the homeschool community liaison, if there's funding left over from the food during the last year or 2 years, you are entitled to use that funding also on top of the €6 to actually arrange food for the children. There's no extra funding either this year for cleaning, but that doesn't mean that we're not mindful and conscious of a healthy learning environment. And indeed, when the inspectors will come, and the inspectors will come to a sample of schools, the important thing is they will see the child protection policies, they will see who is the DLP clearly indicated on the front door. They will see that these policies and all of those are readily available, and the overseer will have that responsibility. And it's important that the overseer works closely with the teachers, with the whole school community in putting the camp together. the optimal use of funds. Look, bribery works. Even if it's a star, even if you give out, each year we say, get a book of 500 tickets. If you get the child doing the right thing, catch them doing the right thing, give them tickets. At the end of the day, have a shop. And in that shop, everything is worth 1 ticket, 2 tickets, 3 tickets, and maybe you have a pair of football boots of any size, it's worth 50 tickets. Bribery works. Catch them doing the right thing, catch them having fun, give them tickets, let them feel that they're being rewarded. And then you have that shopper where the kids can then come and they can buy. And that's where they can even bring in the Gaeilge, Bavalium, Ula the Hull, and that's actually Gá Hicéid, Bavalium Lee Road, Bavalium Pion Louis. Go down to Mr. Price, go down to Deals, pretty much, hey, go down to the people who provide your photocopying in the school. Go down to the companies that provide your cleaning. Ask them to sponsor the things, because this is a whole school community. But optimal use of the funds and to keep the records of that funding, which again, you will send back to the education centres on the report that is available on the Padlet, in the websites, and which will be sent out to every school. Again, it's a very simple report you have to send back, and it is the only compulsory, obligatory part of what you need to send back to the education centres. That report, which clearly outlines everything, which of course is accompanied by the roll. Each day you'll take that roll call. So if kids are not turning up, phone the extra kids, keep them full. So 12, 1, 24, 36 plus the overseer. The team plans to deliver, I think you know that, deliver the best you can every day, but get them off their butts. Bring them out if the weather is good. Have fun doing this. And the opportunities for the parents to come in. God, when we used to run the camp, we'd have the parents coming in running the kitchen. So when the kids came up to get their food, the parents would give them out and the parents would be there and they would be communicating. Parents would come in also. And you know, pretty much, you know your parents, you know your environment, bringing them in to help, for example, on the school tour. Hey, we can actually do a tour this year, which can come out of the funds. You can go to the library, have parents help you going there, going up and going down. And in exceptional cases, if you're a school that needs an SNA, in an exceptional case, then it's up to you to apply directly on the email to the summer camps program and to put your case forward. And the same thing applies for transport. If you have a need for transport, then you need to put the case forward as soon as possible after tonight to the summer camp program and to state your case with the department. But the opportunities, as Alan said, for parental involvement, really create them, because the kids will see this sense of community. Our DEIS communities are whole school. So if we can move on again, Rory, it would be great. On to slide 10, please. So here's a sample of a chlorama, something very simple I've thrown together with pictures. And I want to originally thank the schools in Ennis for kind of helping to put this together. But you will see on this that really the important thing is to give them the sus and give them the loan. But for the first time, I've thrown it in on a Wednesday, just down at the very bottom, the Trust Sculla. It's great to have it. And if you're going to the library, remember, reach out to the library first. If you're a Campo Gaeilge that's in with us tonight, every single corporation, county has a Loughran and a Loughranee, has an Ifigach na Gaeilge, and you can request that person to be in your library, to be there to meet the children. Also, libraries like to be asked, like to be told if you're going to come down. Don't arrive down with 12, 24, or 36 kids, because that's an absolute way of ensuring that you won't get out alive. I mean, Ireland might have won, shall we say, against Scotland 3-0, but by God, you will not win if you turn up at the library. And I think at this particular moment, I'll call in Kathy and I'll call in Kira and Alan in a moment. But when you're doing something, even if you're going on the Trust Sculla, but you might say, Dahi, the price of buses this year, and you're damned right. Which means maybe taking the children to the local park, taking them to the local play park, bringing parents with you for the idea of safety and taking them down there for an extra picnic. But if the weather is good, get out. And on the drop boxes, we've put in everything from the hackers to the dances to the Bali Limnese. We've put in yoga in Irish, and it's also in English. And also there are literally massive amounts of PowerPoints and lessons to assist you, to help you to bring the playfulness, the well-being, the numeracy and the literacy of your DEIS camp, to bring it to a place of being alive. I mean, Kathy, come on, what do you think of that? Because at this particular moment, you've been doing this. So any ideas on the timetable, Clorama, and self-assessment even?
Yeah, lots, I suppose, just to keep it as varied as possible, as you said, you know, indoors, outdoors, art lessons under the trees, you know, use the nature for stimulus. And I suppose in terms of self-assessment, just keep, you know, going back to the, I suppose, the assessment guidelines, keep linking in with for conferencing, you know, on a regular basis, having those little informal chats for the child-led assessment, and using your Compa, your Lauron Compa or your Mahuris, you know, to jot down on a daily basis, allow them that couple of minutes to write down something I learned today, something I enjoyed today, and then when they've gone home, you've got the opportunity to have a look at it and see what was it they enjoyed, and you know, see if something that's planned for tomorrow or the next or later in the week, you know, is going to align with what really sparked their interest, and you know, using that, really focusing, I suppose, on the child-led assessment and incorporating that into the ongoing planning, you know, and kind of that bit of flexibility around what's working and kind of planning accordingly.
Yes, and Kathy, something that I saw even in your own schools, and I saw it in others as well. One school actually allowed a free slot each day so that the kids could vote to what their favorite activity was. And it gave them a sense of empowerment. And then when they were doing their Mahroscola or my diary for the day, they were able to write down their thoughts. So you're helping that sense of literacy. Some of them even wrote it down in code. So they were actually doing coding, like letter A became C and the letter B became D. So they were actually cracking codes together. So making them feel they're part of this. And of course, the parents love that. And thank you for that, because it's there. Alan, how about you and the idea of the reward system and the punctuality? Any ideas there?
Yeah, thanks, Dahi. I suppose I'll just reiterate what Dahi said about the bribery. It's always been such a huge part of these camps. You use the funding, as Dahi said, we've done it for years. Go to Mr. Price, go to Deals, go to whatever is the best €2 shop in your vicinity and buy as much of the little bits and pieces you can find in there. Art, materials, toys, games, sports equipment, anything you can find that will be attractive. And there's always, like, poppets were very popular for the last few years, things like that the kids are mad to get. And then what we usually do, we have a big rolling bin, or coffin as they used to call them in our school. We fill it with all the prizes just before the end of school. We gather the camp kids together, bring them into the room, let them see the prizes that will be available during the camp, and that makes sure that you have your 12, 24, 36 kids banging down the door in the first morning. And then to keep them there and keep them coming every day at the correct time, you link their attendance and their punctuality to this reward system. Tickets for the first kids in the door every morning, and then also your activities first thing in the morning. Don't start with any Scríbh Nóireachta or anything that's anyway electronic at all. You make sure that's races, games, things that are going to really engage them, get them involved, have a lot of fun, but also activities that you can reward their language or their contribution by giving out tickets. And once they know that there's a lot of tickets being given out early in the morning for the first activities, and that they get tickets just for arriving on time, and it's linked to those prizes that they're going to be mad to win, then you should have no problem with your punctuality and attendance, or hopefully that would be the case. Thanks, Dahi.
You're welcome. And Alan, the important thing is the one thing I loved about being in your school was I'd walk in the door and I'd hear them all singing the camp song. A lot of them would actually write a camp song. They go, they'd be writing raps and they'd be writing songs, and they're basically hopping off the walls. Now, it's one of those times you can let them hop off the walls simply because it's a camp, it's a playfulness. They're learning through play. They're learning all of the skills. What I love to see also, some of the schools using their Chromebooks and going out there and being out in the digital and green area, creating Q codes and creating all of these codes maybe for the trees that are there, creating a digital story, which again is part of that literacy, creating, even using green screen, creating a film. And it particularly, I mean, it's Kathy, in your school, the way that they were able to create so many, in particular, so many films using green screen and then overdubbing them with the music. So really the sky is the limit. I often say, who said when reality ends, imagination begins? And I get all these crazy answers. Einstein said, when reality ends, imagination begins, was said by Tinkerbell in Peter Pan. So let your imagination go, but in letting your imagination go, bribe them. It really works. Ciara, you're way over there in the West at this particular moment. God knows we'd love you to win in All Ireland, but we'll keep it for the moment. Have you any hints or anything to do with that whole sense of assessment and fun and engagement?
Yeah, well, last year was our first experience of running a JESH camp. We're a small JESH Rural school, just 2 mainstream teachers and a shared SET. So I really took on board what Alan and Kathy said last year when they talked about the prizes and the catching them being good and the tickets. And that was a real novelty for the children. And, you know, it really helped them see that even though this camp was in school, it was not like school, you know, they were getting all these tickets and prizes all the time. As regards fun, they loved anything we did outside. We did lots of kind of maths trails, scavenger hunts, you know, as much sport as we could outside, and orienteering, things like that. They just enjoyed all of that kind of thing. Yeah.
And thank you, Ciara. And if you can stay on, please, because Rory, can you go to the next slide, please? Because we're onto the camp overseer that we'd love to talk about. I mean, literally, as you said, you were put into the very deep end of the pool last year, and you were put in at a time when, wow, you put in at a time, let's face it, anyone who survived last year, kudos. Muchos kudos going out there, because it was a challenge. So Ciara, from your experience, and we'll get into it in a moment, but from an overseer's perspective, how does that sit with you? What did you learn? Are there any lessons you think you'd love to share, or stories you'd like to tell everyone out there?
Well, for me, I'm a teaching principal, which I often find challenging because I don't get enough time to maybe, you know, talk to or engage with the children in the other classroom. And as an overseer, it was great to actually have time to talk to the children outside of their activities, and also was great to have time to do your admin and to sort out, you know, all the different jobs that's listed there on the slide that the overseer does. And for me, the practical considerations at the beginning were, well, who's going to teach on this camp? And it didn't suit the teachers in my particular school at the time. But, you know, I'd had some excellent sub-teachers that I contacted that I taught in our school, and they were very keen to come on board. And that worked well. Again, I think that was part of the success of the camp, in that the children, you know, have had different teachers. You know, they're used to sometimes having maybe the same teacher in a small rural school for maybe 3 or 4 years. So to have different teachers that brought new skills and new experiences and so on. Also for me, part of what made it successful, I think, was choosing the correct time to do it. And just that, like in where I am, where I have about like 3 different GAA clubs within close proximity. So there was cool camps going on, there was different camps going on, and to choose the week that kind of suited where there was nothing going on. And I really wanted to catch the children that I felt would benefit from the camp, and in choosing the correct time, I think that worked well. So yeah, just those were 2 things that came to mind, and just also having time to purchase resources, to have time, because I wasn't teaching, I had more time to put thought into what would work as regards our JESH plan, what maybe would add to the resources we already had in the school.
And thank you very much for that, Ciara. And I suppose, like we've been referring to the overseer, really the important thing is that the overseer is part of the school, knows the kids. So an overseer is not going to be an outside person. But like you said, Ciara, and I've had a lot of calls from you, as indeed has Alan has had. Yes, you can bring in teachers, you know, substitute teachers, and those again have been quite clearly laid out as to what teachers you can employ. And you can bring in 2nd level teachers, primary teachers, as long as, again, they are fully vetted, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I think you all know that. The overseer also has that responsibility, like we said, to ensure the kids are in, looking at punctuality, looking at the idea of the completion of the final report, and making that available to the education centre, and also ensuring that each day that the Laurella, that the roll is taken and called and is kept it's basically kept, they have to be returned. And I would suggest, if you want, keep copies of that in your folder in the school as well. Everything that you forward, keep a copy of it, a digital copy under your GDPRs would be there. again, the other duties will be answered. On the FAQ, I think Aideen and Ultim would agree with this. The FAQ is very comprehensive again, because I see questions coming up in the chat about payment and OLCS. All of those are answered in the FAQ document. We've tried to put them all down for you, but can the role be shared? Again, we would advise not to have overseer's role shared, but let's say someone gets ill or someone's out there, as long as it is someone of a permanent teacher from within the school who knows what's happening, but that overseer cannot be a teacher on the camp. And why? Kira said it brilliantly. Maybe you're the person going out dealing with the lunches. Maybe you're the person getting the food. You're the person making the phone calls. You're the person doing this. You really are the person ensuring that if a Kigera does come in, you're meeting him or her, you're actually speaking with them, you're presenting the policies, you're showing them around, and you're bringing them through the school. So you are, for all intents and purposes, I'll say it for the millionth time, an overseer. And that's what it's all about. So taking care of that, and then ensuring at the very end that, should we say, everyone's details are put into the OLCS system for payment, ensuring that the things are sent back to the education centres, and also utilising those hours beforehand. The homeschool community liaison teacher is very important here to get the information or the inside story maybe on certain kids. And that's why the 10 hours preparation at the start is important, to plan together. When you plan together, you plan to succeed. Can we have the next slide, please, Rory, let the hub. Now, the next slide is a fairly quick one, because we're literally talking about the COVID plan, but as I said, COVID has not gone. It's very important that we know that it's still here. So what are we doing? Just remember to implement the best health plan that is available in the school right now. Keep the children looking, because look, you've got the new strains out there right now. Actually, the new strains, recently from a teacher I spoke to this morning, said the new strain, Dahi, is an up and down. I think you know what I mean by that. So just be careful of that. And also, the whole idea is that where it's not stringent, the important thing is, how does the overseer communicate with parents if someone is ill, if someone becomes ill? Again, make sure you've all of this done, the eventuality. If someone has to go away with another teacher or with a student, who takes that person's place? And the important thing, if you do have teachers working with you this summer who are not familiar fully with the school, i.e., as Kira said, such as, make sure, please, that they know the structure, the running, the formality, the policies, and particularly the school's child safeguarding policies and procedures, which the inspectors will ask for. And also, how does one implement whatever plan now exists in the school for the likes of COVID? Because it's pretty important that is there. So COVID is not gone. Okay, very important. So Rory, can we go on to the next one, please, on the child safeguarding? You're reading my mind on this one. So the name of the DLP and the child safeguarding statement must be prominently displayed. We often say put them on the front door or any exit door so that parents can see this as well. And who do you contact? Who is the person in charge? And that indeed may be the overseer. It's very important that is clear from the start. All doors show clearly what is necessary. So you'll see who is the DLP, where are the policies, what is the operation time of the camp. I remember a long time ago, Mary Dunn will go mad at this stage, when it was over certain Gaeltacht camps, and we'd go out for a walk, I'd say, Tommy, the muck fwyn spare. I used to have a picture of a pig flying, because we were literally a muck fwyn spare, because we were out there. In other words, I never left a phone number just in case the Kigera came, because when you're in the deep parts of the Gaeltacht, trust me, many of the Kigeri, unlike Mary, would not climb up Crowpatrick after you. But the fact is, it's important that if parents do come and you're gone to the library or the Laurelin or on Truscola, they're not going, oh, sweet, mother, Jesus, where's me kids? So have some means by which they can contact you, have a means by which they know where you are, and don't be afraid to put up those posters, we're gone on to Laurelin, or we're gone to the school tour, we're gone somewhere. And also the reason being is, if the Kigger arrives, the poor Kigger can't be sitting outside your door for an hour and a half wondering where you are. So a little sign which says, gone to the Laurelin or gone on our school tour. But at least if you're going on school tours, let us maybe know that, or Alan will be in contact with you, or I will be. Let us know that so we can inform Siobhan or Joan so that they will know if the Kiggery are coming. Let the Kiggery know not to arrive in a school on those particular days, and make sure that all teachers have read the school's child safeguarding statement. And in particular, again, I state that the camps are important and should be, it's important that everyone who's there knows what they're doing. And this is why we have the 10 hours beforehand. Okay, so again, if we can go to the next one, I'm sure we're already there. So all the additional guidance we need will be on the FAQs. It will be on the website. It'll be there. The additional guidance are in the books. You've got info@ecnavan.ie, info@dwec.ie. You've got the list of the resources, the websites, the Padlets, the lessons. All the additional guidance will be there in the actual booklet itself. And the visits and the phone calls from the Kiggery, and maybe if it comes from some of ourselves and we don't know what's going to happen there, we will be there to phone you on the other side to help you. So if you have questions, please reach out. Why? Because the most powerful word in any language is cowringling or help. And look, all we can do is share the stories with you in the best way we can actually do that. So if the inspectors do come to visit, by the way, it's like a drive-by. God, that's the wrong word, Mary. It's like, what's it they call it? The inspectors will come in and they will discuss and meet the overseer, will discuss and see what's happening, will then give a verbal feedback. It is not a written feedback. It will be a verbal feedback so that the camp can function in the best way in that playful environment, so that is Federling, we can together do this. And then the camp can be guided if there are other criteria or things pointed out, so that the camp's handbook can guide you. And if an inspector does turn up or someone else, it's there to listen, to hear, to share, so that the camp will be most effective. And the constructive oral feedback, which will come from the Kiggery, is provided at the end of that day, and then to the overseer and also to the team or the representative who may be chosen by the school on the operation of the camp. And then, if you wish, you're invited to keep a written report, she was here to discuss those points. But from a Kiggery's perspective, it will be an oral feedback. And again, most of these are laid out in the FAQs. So number 15, guidance on the actual preparation then. What we're actually looking for here is everything that you will require is already outlined in the handbook. The practical preparation, like the whole idea is, I would suggest, and I think this is important, I'm going to invite the lads in on this again, choose a theme. It could be a theme of creativity. It could be a theme of musical magic. It could be a theme of books are golden. It could be we are androids. Choose a theme and build around that with a potential spider web or brainstorm with the children, and the whole idea of the practical preparation. And look at this timetable we've sent to you and is there to download, and adapt, change, overcome, readapt, evolve, revolve, create a revolution if you wish. And the identity of what resources are available, make your own lists. And by the way, share them. Share evolving best practice. It's not a competition. It's share with others if you've got schools close by. I mean, I'm not talking about Alan and David there now, because up that side of the country, it's bloody football, you know, so they don't share anything up there because they all want to win the League of Ireland. But that's beside the point. But share the resources with schools that are close to you. And also, again, the library visit, and maybe the little tour, the tour that you may take out there, as if you can afford it within the funding that's actually there. And from a daily preparation, I suppose specifically look at what's my learning outcome for today? What's the playful learning experiences that are going to bring the kids towards that playful learning outcome? And how am I going to design for learning? What type of an environment are we going to design for learning? The idea, is it going to be the dance? Is it going to be the basketball? Is it going to be chess? Is it going to be technology? Is it going to be reading? Is it the whiteboards? But again, the kids and you spend enough time indoors. Let's get out. I mean, Kira, Kathy, Kira, at this particular moment, pre-planning in the year, do you want to talk about that? Kira, how about you? Anything you want to say about pre-planning? And maybe Kathy, if you want to come in also?
Yeah, just to say the pre-planning meeting worked really well for us. As I mentioned, because the teachers were from outside of our own school, it was important that we had time to sit down for a couple of hours and talk about how we would group the children, maybe some needs that some of the children had. We looked at the resources that we had in the school, and then the teachers talked about maybe some skills that they had themselves or lessons that they enjoyed teaching. Like, for example, you know, there was a set of plastic hockey sticks at the back of the cupboard that hadn't been used for years, and one of the teachers used those one of the days, and the kid that went down really well. Another teacher said, oh, I can do some tag rugby, so I invested in some tag rugby equipment that we'd never had before. So the pre-planning really, you know, gave us that insight into what we could bring to the camp, and it was really important, and it gave us some time to even decide which teacher would take which group, you know, which teacher had most experience of that age group. You know, there was just a lot of talking, and then even just as you mentioned, on a daily basis, afterwards we would talk for a little while about, you know, what had worked that day, what did we feel the children really enjoyed, and what maybe we wouldn't bother doing again, what we would do less of, what we would do more of, that type of thing. So definitely the planning together with me as overseer with the three teachers worked well.
And also you've got 10 hours for each camp. So it's not just 10 hours if you have 2 camps. So if you have 2 camps going out, there are 10 hours and 10 hours there. That they can run simultaneously or on different weeks. Kathy, I mean, the idea of the resources and everything, anything you would like to add to that?
A lot of what Ciara said would have been the same. I suppose getting that pre-planning meeting done in time so that you can decide, well, what resources do we need? Do we need to buy T-shirts to do tie-dye, or what art equipment do we need, etc., and time to have that ready to go. Also, we would have, again, like Ciara said, you know, decided whose skill set suited what activity on a given day, and potentially taught the same lesson. You know, that was, I guess, Gaeilge Camp pre-COVID. I'm thinking back to, but where we would have rotated the groups, that the children weren't being taught by the same teacher all day. So there was lots of rotation to mix it up, and a little bit of variety there for everybody. So.
And you can do that this year again. We can rotate teachers, we can rotate groups, and as I said, bringing the parents in. And also the important thing is, I would say, and I think everyone would agree, if you've got a timetable, you've got something that will follow. How you lay that out is important for you. Again, maybe leaving a space free every day for the kids to choose what's their favorite thing. The idea of reflection, getting them to reflect. And the idea of, if it was the Gaeilge, I know we're going back to the ABC. God knows the days of Buntu's Kainta, Rave Cummersod, Ear Cummersod. And as Rory and David and I suppose everyone would basically say, if we're going to look at how do we do it now within the language curriculum, the new language curriculum, the whole idea is that children use language. And also, if we've got children in now, which we do, where EAL is an issue, where language is an issue, KISS, keep it simple and steady. And again, don't be afraid to reach out to those who provide your school meals. See, can they do a special deal this year? Offer them €1 for a meal each day for a kid. Come on. And if they give out, then tell them you'll give them 60 cents or 70 cents in the dollar. But they will very often come forward and they'll offer that to you. And if it's transport, looking to see what's the best thing. But again, doing under the guidelines, having enough parents there to ensure that you're working within a safe environment and everyone to be familiar with what's happening. So the guidance of preparation are all in the handbooks, in the FAQs, they're all inside in the Padlet and the drop boxes, and most of the questions will be answered there. So I'm going to hand you back now at this particular stage to Ibra Shadia, Rory.
Thank you very much. And look, thanks very much for those insights from Ciara and Kathy and Alan. In the next slide, we're going to talk about the role of the teacher throughout the camp, and it's been fantastic so far to hear the practical examples, which really have illustrated what's to come in this slide. So we won't dwell on them for an overly long period of time, because we've the real in practice examples already. But the first consideration is that, you know, to have a good pedagogical content knowledge when preparing for the summer camp. And by that, I suppose we're talking about being really clear on what it is you want the children to experience during the camp, or what is it that you'd like them to learn over the course of the camp. You know, Dahi has just spoken there about the importance of talk and discussion. And our next consideration there is that, you know, children and teachers would encourage children to join in through open-ended questioning. That's really important. And I suppose on this slide, we have a quote from the primary language curriculum. The role of the teacher is to support and develop children's talk during processes of exploration, discovery, and problem solving. And we've heard quite a number of times already this evening, and as you know from your own experience of the summer camp program, that the emphasis is on play and active learning and an overall sense of enjoyment and well-being. So that ties in very well there. The next thing that we need to consider is the appropriate use of resources. And, you know, Ciara has just given us the example of getting additional resources for tag rugby in her school, whether it's getting the resources that Kathy spoke about for tie-dye. But it's not that you have to go and, you know, over prepare and take in a huge lot of resources. The focus is on quality over quantity. So that's an important consideration as you plan. The next one there at the bottom of the screen is that we create scenarios based on the children's interests, their needs, and their abilities. Because this will really capitalize on, I suppose, those curiosities that are there within the child. And it really encourages that whole child involvement in the camp and the child as a co-designer of the camp. So that's important too. The second last consideration we have there is to ensure that we have a safe space for the camp. And there are a number of aspects to that. And I know this time last year in particular, but also this year, as Dahi has said, COVID hasn't fully gone away. So there are some safety considerations in line with your school's own policy on COVID-19 in terms of ensuring safety in the school. The fact that there will be quite a lot of active learning and perhaps outdoor learning in this, there are some safety considerations in that regard, but also safety in terms of acceptable behaviours on the camp. So it's important that there's a bit of thought and a bit of clarity in terms of those acceptable behaviours to ensure that you've, you know, a positive climate and a positive, I suppose, classroom or learning environment throughout your camp. The last one, and it is an abstract one, but it's an important one, is just the whole thing of not being afraid to let your guard down, because, you know, there are so many valuable opportunities for learning throughout the summer camp program. But as we will talk about again in a few slides' time, this is not seen as, you know, catching up on lost time, whether that be from COVID-19 or whatever. The emphasis of the summer camp program is on fun and promoting a sense of well-being. So I suppose dropping your guard and rowing in with that. And we've heard some fantastic examples of that already tonight. So that's really important. So we'll move on, Rory, if that's okay. We're going to just briefly consider success criteria for learning outcomes. And learning outcomes are one of the domains which you'll notice in the summer camp handbook. So we have a number of considerations coming up there on the screen, but it's really important at the outset to say that in your preparation and planning for your summer camp, a really useful starting point really should be your school's DESH plan, because you have a lot of this thinking and consideration well underway, if not done already. So it's important to begin from that position of strength. So learner outcomes are directly related to the pupil's identified needs in language or mathematics. So that's our first consideration. The second consideration is that pupils would have opportunities to reflect on their own learning. And in order to facilitate this, it's been spoken about quite a lot already, but there is a self-assessment booklet for the children that you might be familiar with, Mahura Scolia, my learning journey, which you will come across in the camp admin documents. And again, the link to those is in the chat box if you haven't come across those yet. So they can be really useful to use either partially or fully to encourage the children to reflect on their learning throughout the summer camp. The whole importance of motivation and choice has been highlighted already this evening, but as we all know, our pupils are most motivated when they're experiencing success, when they're enjoying what they're doing. So getting children involved as co-designers and I suppose co-creators of the camp is so important in keeping motivation high. And it also promotes a sense of agency and well-being, as we all know, which will encourage the children to come back day after day, which is really what we want to encourage. The next consideration, again, has strong links to your school's DESH plan. So again, this is a useful starting point. but this is that the planned learning outcomes would have meaningful links with the work of your school. So it's quite clear that you would have done quite a lot of work on this already in your DEIS plan. The last consideration is that the pupils' learning outcomes are planned for, monitored and assessed by teachers throughout the summer camp program. Why? So that we meet the needs of those individual pupils. I know from talking to teachers in relation to the planning and preparation of their camps that the 5 considerations we have on screen, quite often teachers have found it useful to turn those into questions. So for example, are our learner outcomes related to the pupils' needs? Are pupils able to talk about their learning? So perhaps that might be useful for you to turn those into questions for yourself as you prepare. Okay, Rory, we'll move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so we just want to consider the summer camp in context at the moment, and by that we want to look at child-centered practice. So in providing for child-centered education, there are a number of key considerations. So child-centered education would cater for the, as we said, the interests, the needs and the abilities of all children. It's really important, again, that we include and incorporate the voice of the child at all stages. Why? Because that builds positive relationships, whether that be from and between child to child or child to teacher, but also, as Alan said previously at the start of the evening, those really positive relationships between the school and the home as well, they're really important and a real key part of child-centered learning and child-centered education. It's also, we talk a lot about learning concepts and skills, but dispositions are really important in terms of, you know, the child's openness and receptiveness to language and to learning. And if we draw back to our examples of that Alan gave earlier on about the whole raffle ticket concept, you know, that whole encouragement of children to reconnect and to get involved and to be banging at the door morning after morning to get involved, that's really what we're trying to promote and to achieve. Okay, look, we touched on this briefly in a previous slide, but while the summer camp has really strong links with obviously literacy and numeracy, it's important to reaffirm and to consider that this camp isn't designed, you know, to catch up on lost time for COVID-19. It's important to think back to the vision that Dahi put across so well at the start of this session, that it's about the whole concept of fun and well-being. So let's just keep that in mind. I suppose the last consideration on this slide is that assessment and monitoring are really important to ensure that the learning experiences are pitched at an appropriate level. And I suppose we're going to move on now, Rory, just to talking about assessment and monitoring in a little bit more detail. Okay, so as we can see from the graphic in the center there that we have my summer camp 2022, the learning journey. So that's the summer camp handbook. And again, you know, there are so many parts of this handbook that you may find useful. Some of you may dip in and out of that. Some of you may use the whole thing verbatim. So you would make use of this in a way that you see fit. But we also have some practical strategies for assessment on the right-hand side in the circular graphic, which we'd all be familiar with. So, for example, tags, so tell, ask, and give, 2 stars and a wish, mind maps, etc. But at this point, I'd really like to bring back in Alan and Kathy and Kira just to talk about assessment in terms of, you know, assessment is part of this whole journey in terms of selecting children at the outset, and indeed in terms of assessing on an ongoing basis throughout the camp itself. So if I come to Alan first, would you have any experience you'd like to share with us in terms of assessment for the summer camp?
Hi all. Yes, suppose my comments on pupil selection, they relate directly back to what I said beforehand about the parents. In terms of pupil selection, what we like to do is strike a balance between those most in need, those who may, for various reasons, and we all know we're working in DEIS schools long enough, most of us to know that there can be many reasons that a child is unable to access the curriculum on a day-to-day basis, be it issues at home, issues at school, learning difficulties, or even socioeconomic issues that are affecting their chances at school. So obviously these camps are designed specifically to target those children, and we've done that over the last number of years, and it's so important to do that. But I would just encourage you to try and strike that balance as well. What we'd also do is obviously offer places on the camp to those other students in your school, students who come to school every day, bouncing in the door, happy, they're engaging, they're doing well at school, and they're positive role models for the other students, because you want those students who are going to access the scheme, the ticket scheme. They're going to realize, okay, if I do X and I do Y, I get tickets, and then this behavior is then copied by those less able students, or students who are just getting back on track in a way by coming to the summer camp. So I'd always just advise that try and get, it's a difficult thing to do to get that balance right, but if you do that, it's hugely successful. And then the point that I alluded to earlier, it reinforces that element of this positive relationships. You make or build a positive relationship with a child during a summer camp, a child that could have had a difficult year for various reasons in terms of behavior or other issues, and if you bring them in during the summer camp, they're getting rewarded every day for any engagement. As Dahi said, it's bribery, but you give them prizes, you give them tickets, you get them back on track in terms of their school. And then when it comes to September, if difficult issues arise, you have that rapport built up, you've got that positive relationship with them, and you might be on hand and have their class teacher or principal to sort of issues that may arise going forward. So in your pupil selection, say try and strike the balance, the positive role models, and those kids that really need summer camp. And if you can do that, it's a very enjoyable experience for everyone. Thanks.
Thanks, Alan, and thanks for sharing those thoughts with us. Kathy, would you have any thoughts in relation to assessment throughout the summer camp to share with us?
I suppose to reiterate the point that Alan made there, in terms of selection, I guess I know in our own situation, we would have had, say, senior classes did access to Camp Gaeilge, and then maybe second, third class access to the English camp. So just to kind of differentiate there as well, to again make that differentiation. And with that, as Alan said, the point of rapport, where you had that the language rapport with children, so that going forward, when you met the children from Camp Gaeilge in the door, as well kind of thought through, and that was kind of the rapport and the relationship had been built up there. But I guess I referenced it earlier on, the constant conferencing, just checking in, how are things going, and that I suppose it's something that maybe the overseer could do as well as the teachers, to just check in a little, kind of quiet conversation here or there, throughout the course of the day on the trips, and that constant observation of how are people, the different relationships going, and friendships, and who's hanging out with who and whatnot, over the course of the week as well. But just I guess even as much as that, to keep lots of pictures going on social media, on Seesaw, etc., to allow that opportunity to reflect on it, and the conversation to go home as well. So that linkage there too. I'm kind of digressing from the assessment question, but that type of line.
Thanks a million, Kathy. No, not at all. It's all very valuable. So thanks for sharing. Ciara, I'm conscious as well that you told us that last year had been your school's first time in running the camp. So would you have any thoughts in that regard that you'd like to share about how you found the whole assessment of the camp, or anything that you would maybe do differently this year?
Well, just as regards that assessment booklet, I found that very useful. The children filled it in daily, and then at the end of the week, they talked obviously about what they enjoyed and so on, and chose the activities they liked. So that will help inform our planning for this year. And similarly, at the end of the booklet, there's a page for the parents to fill out. And one thing that struck me was that even though we had say an outdoor activity, at least one outdoor activity per day, the parents still asked for more outdoor activities. So again, that will inform the planning for this year, weather permitting, of course. But just it was useful in that way, that it will help for this year. And just like Kathy was saying there, just as overseer, I found it great to build up that rapport with children that I don't actually teach normally. Maybe some of the younger children in the school, and even months later, when I might have chatted to them on yard duty, they would refer back to maybe prizes they'd got on the summer camp. So if you just they associated that with them, all these tickets and prizes. So they that's what they remember, and that's what they enjoy. And it's just different to school, and yet they're learning and they're having fun and they're socializing together and they're building those relationships with their peers. And again, for me, because of COVID and everything, I hadn't really had much of a chance to liaise much with the parents. And even obviously, it was still only at the gate that I got to see them daily. But again, because I have a class, I wouldn't normally get to do that. So they'll give me a chance to build more relationships with parents in that way too. So yeah, and I'm looking forward to, again, just what hopefully will happen differently is that the parents will now be allowed inside the gate this year and will hopefully help out with some of the activities, maybe come on the tour that we're going to do into the local library and so on.
Thanks very much, Ciara. And thank you to Kathy and Alan also for sharing those insights. So I'm just going to hand you back over now to Marcin, who's going to talk about playful learning experiences. Cormago.
Cormago, David. Okay, so in designing your summer camp, it's very important to consider what playful learning experiences we're going to provide for the children and that are provided in your school, and linking them again with the type of playful experiences that are already happening in the school. Things such as ASHTR, the primary language curriculum, STEM, the whole area of Corpidachus, Gausa, Crohia, creative dance, Dúchlan last night, the outdoor and adventure challenges and that. Okay, so when looking at playful learning experiences and determining the success criteria, I think it's important maybe if we turn these statements into questions when we're planning for success in playful learning experiences. So we might ask ourselves, are our pupils highly engaged in stimulating and playful learning activities? And to that end, the NCCA support material is available on curriculumonline.ie to support the primary language curriculum, has quite a number of support materials available to us. You can see an example of one there on the screen on the bottom right-hand side. Second question we might ask ourselves is, are our children active? Are they working collaboratively? And are they undertaking tasks that are appropriately challenging? And again, on the screen, you can see a picture there of, or an image of, the PDST manual, Active Learning Methodologies, an excellent resource when planning for active learning for children. Third question we might ask ourselves, are the children engaged in activities where they solve everyday problems? Problem solving skills, critical thinking, analysis, very important, not only in the whole area of numeracy, but also in literacy. And again, on the PDST website, the STEM suite are available, in which there are quite a huge number of interesting and varied activities around the whole area of developing the whole area of science, technology, engineering and mathematics. And the fourth question, and this has come up again and again throughout the day, in the whole area of get the children gaining a sense of, whole area of gaining a sense of ownership and responsibility for their learning. And again, if we look at the children being co-designers, if the children get a chance to actually have an input into the type of activities that are happening on the camp, they're more likely to be engaged, they're more likely to enjoy the learning experience and to actually acquire that learning in a much more meaningful manner. Okay, so Rory, so the next couple of slides, we just have a couple of images taken from STEM Suite to show you some of the many activities that are available on STEM Suite. So we've kind of worked through those fairly fast. You can just take a couple of seconds. So you just take a glance down to this one. There's a little bit more of screen Nora and Jansa must me live Schrache and the Hort Shin. Perfect. Better truck a second no Shin. Agus Sean, tríú sampla atá going as STEM Suite. Okay, so in considering planning and preparing for play and playful learning, if we look at Peter Gray's quote here, children are designed by nature to learn through self-directed play and exploration. Just consider that for a moment. And before I look at the characteristics, I just might ask Kathy, Alan and Ciara to give examples of playful and engaging approaches that have worked well for them in their experience of running summer camps. So maybe go to so email Kathy, mata in Suite good, Kathy or Bala tak to stock and so, Mashitale.
Yeah, Higgin Jack and Shin Marching Gurmargaret. I suppose one thing we did was almost like a sociodramatic play from Ashler. You referenced it a minute ago. For even though we were dealing with senior classes, so we had Colony from Ron Cuig, and we just did like on Velan Osculga, and while it sounds so childish maybe and simple, they actually really engaged with it and got great enjoyment from it. And it was interesting, kind of sometimes I think we forget the senior children are still just children and do engage in playful activities and enjoy it. And ultimately, particularly because it was Osculga, it was the language opportunity and the opportunity to practice the Frosy that we had been working on over the course of the week. So it was a very positive experience. While it might sound posh, they really engaged and enjoyed it.
Because Kathy had no I'm going to posh tool because children enjoy something like that. That's very important that we see enjoyable there. Gohontak, Kira takte staken sa again winter shop mata in winter good Kira.
We enjoyed, Kathy mentioned it earlier on, they did some tie-dyeing, and just the fact that we did it outside worked well because they wouldn't be used to maybe doing so many art activities outside. We tried to use that. Also, we went on a nature walk and also just again, the use of ICT worked well in that we had the small groups and we were able to do a little bit of filming, and they did a little bit of drama and filmed it and played it back through the interactive whiteboard. They enjoyed that.
Excellent, and again touching on quite a number of the characteristics there. Gormagad Kira, Agus Alan Matas Winter Gotten Son must be the talk to stock.
Yeah, I'm conscious before making this point that there are people who have been on these webinars for the last number of years, and they say if this fella talks about a camp song again, the numbers will be dropping. But I have to make this point because it's my thing now for the camps. I just feel that it ticks so many boxes and it solves so many problems, and it's just a great activity, and it lends itself to so many of the elements of the camp that are important. What we do is we have a camp song, and it's great for the language. You can use the language that the children will need during the camp. You choose a current pop song, change the lyrics, put in the language that will be used during the camp, things that happen, different activities are mentioned and named. What this does is, from a management perspective, when you move from activity to activity, the children can sing the song and they can do their little dance. The language is then being shouted or sung throughout the day. When you sit down later in the day to fill in your learning journal or your Turas Fólama, the children have the language, they've been using it all day, and it's much easier for them to fill out this piece of paper at the end of the day. Also as well, the big point that allows you to let your guard down as a teacher. They'll love to see you acting the clown, throwing a shape to a silly song or silly dance. Their TikToks are all into it at the minute, and if you can kind of have a wee look beforehand and get one or two of them moves that they're all trying to learn and throw it in there during your camp song, you get a great response. And that's what it's about, as I said, building the relationships, having the crack, just being silly for a couple of weeks during the summer, letting them see that side of you, and they'll all get involved and getting bored. So I just advocate that the use of a camp song. It's, as I said, so many problems are solved, and it's useful in so many ways. So I give that a go.
Excellent. Thanks. I think, Alan, there you're being adventurous and risky there with your TikTok moves. Excellent. There's a bit of a campaign starting for Alan to sing the song, so perhaps he'll even join in with the movements afterwards. Gormina Margaret Alan is shin on about. Okay, Gormagad Galer. So yeah, as you can see there now, the lads have really touched on most of those there. It's very important on planning for play and playful learning that children are active, not only active physically, but active minds as well. The whole area of being able to take a venture, to take a risk and being adventurous. Play is an excellent area for that, because the whole pretend element of play and the whole safety around the whole area of play allows children to take adventures, to be adventurous, to take risks, and to therefore develop many skills. Communication obviously is an extremely important part of playful learning and play. Children communicate not only verbally but non-verbally, and so we think of various ways in which we can communicate, whether it be with body language, signs, the way we react to something. So there's not only verbal but also non-verbal communication. Of course, the lads have just outlined so many different enjoyable activities. It's important that the children have fun. play and playful learning needs to be meaningful. It needs to be based on what the children have experienced, what they know, and then extending that knowledge and those experiences in a learning environment that's safe. And of course, one of the key characteristics of play and playful learning is the whole sociability of it, and that it's an interactive activity. But the children don't always have to play with others. They may play alongside others at times, and even occasionally play alone, and yet be learning at the same time. Excellent, Gormagot. Rory is filling Dollarag. So, Darnioig, mar quid the Corcuiga na Gaeilge tá Cormac a Gwingalair and Gorcuiga Conversaidach, the communicative approach. But this is an approach that we're familiar with, as Gaeilge, Egmún na Gaeilge, Achar Nioig, Winninshell, Tangaka, it's an approach internationally. Someone's still looking for a camp song. It is an approach that is used internationally for the teaching of languages, but we obviously have adapted it very successfully in Egmún na Gaeilge. Agus tá trí chréibhse I gceist, an tréibhse réamh Conversaide in Muintir an Tanga, the pre-communicative phase in which we teach the language. We go through the vocabulary and phrases that the children already know as part of their previous learning that they will be needing for the lesson, but also then the input of new vocabulary and phrases. Looking at form, structure, grammar, motivating the children is a very important part of the pre-communicative phase. Doing this through the whole area of drills, recitation, repetition, small little games, maybe a pre-written drama to actually practice the language that they will need for the communicative phase. So it's a tréimhse Conversaide, déintear clachta an Tanga, I slí atá tatnamh agus Conversaidach. So in the communicative phase, this is where the practice and the use of the language happens in a communicative way through strategies such as roll immert, draw miacht, plihitanga, agla bertha, agus marshinde. So tréimhse Ir Conversaide, now the post-communicative phase, this is where we embed the language, dangvítar and tanga and sha. Agus fécamid na botúna tá déanta sa tréimhse Conversaide, and we look to correct those botún. We look at enriching that language by looking at different type of tasks to embed that language in different scenarios, and perhaps to look at a little bit at analysing the grammar of the lesson. Also, is filling the Reaganish and Shin. So to support you in Egmúna Corcuiga Conversaidach go haire sa Gaeilge, tá Padlet Clill Aun agus Eram Padlet seo tá go leor smaointe ó thaobh na Harvard difriúla a bhúna trí bhean na Gaeilge. So you have ceol, drá miacht, ólaíocht, yoga as Gaeilge agus mar sin de. So go córga meach an nasc sin a gcuibh comá. So that's the Padlet for Clill. One of the important one there, Sprag an Gaeilge l'Esprit, is an excellent one for looking at Corpidachas trí Gaeilge agus Rudí mar sin. So it's Bedling Dollarag. So I think I'm going to hand you back now here to David.
Good, Martin. Thanks very much. So we're just going to take a couple of moments to consider opportunities for rich language experiences throughout the summer camp. And thank you to Kathy, Alan and Ciara for the various examples that we've had already about rich languages experiences over the course of a summer camp. But we've two quotes on the screen there that illustrate the importance of these languages experiences over the course of the summer camp, because as we'll see at the top there, at age 6, a typical child from a mid-ranking socioeconomic background will know about 10 to 11,000 words, whereas at the age of 6, a child from a socially disadvantaged background may know as few as 2,500 words. So I think you'll agree that's quite profound, the potential gap that there is there. So it just highlights the importance and the opportunity that we have in front of us. Just some considerations that we have over the course of the summer camp. Disciplinary literacy is one that I think is particularly important. I know I've often remarked that particularly when we think about numeracy and problem solving, quite often I found that children in my class struggle with the disciplinary literacy, so the language that they need to access that particular discipline. And one resource that I'd like to highlight to you, and it is linked on the Padlet that has been extensively put into the chat tonight, it's the Let's Talk resource. And that's really useful in terms of promoting that mathematical language that children really require to access the mathematical and the numeracy curriculum. So that's really useful. But look, wider than just literacy and numeracy, there are so many opportunities to develop language across the entire curriculum over the course of the week. So it's important that we put a particular emphasis on those interactions, both speaking and listening. So many of you be very familiar and very experienced in terms of the Ashter framework and the whole concept of playful learning experiences and learning through play. So that would be really important throughout the camp. But if we just take a second to consider the primary language curriculum, and if we consider just one subtle difference between the 99 English curriculum, where, if you recall, it would always have said the child will be enabled to, whereas in the primary language curriculum, you'll notice on the grey box on the screen there, it's framed as through appropriately engaging learning experiences, children should be able to. So even from a curricular point of view, the whole aspect of playful learning is really to the forefront of what we do. So obviously in the summer camp, that's even more important. Okay, so we'll move on there, please, Rory, if that's okay. We just want to take a moment or two to highlight some additional resources that we think would be particularly useful to you over the course of the summer camp. Now, the PDSTE bulletins, these really came to the fore in a really big way over the course of the COVID-19 closures. These e-bulletins, they're freely available, and there are lots of, I suppose, ideas and resources to promote the whole aspect of rich and varied language experiences. So if you'll see on screen there, for example, you'll see that e-bulletin number 8 there focuses on playful and creative use of language, which you may find particularly important. Again, there's a link to these e-bulletins on the Padlet that has been shared with you. But one that we've highlighted that might be particularly important to you as you prepare your summer camp would be e-bulletin number 9, which focuses on motivation. And, you know, on the screen there, you'll see sample task cards from e-bulletin number 9, which would support the use of, as we've discussed, open-ended questions to encourage that use of language from children. And that also encourages, you know, critical thinking and reflection. So it can be really useful. Just the next support that we'll move on to is recognizing that many of the children attending our camps, and particularly so this year, come from a variety of culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. And perhaps you may be in a scenario where this is a new endeavor for your school. But there are a wealth of resources which we've put together, again, on a separate Padlet. And I know there's going to be a link put in the chat in the next couple of moments in terms of the PDST's EAL and Linguistic Diversity Padlet. So I would encourage you to look at that. Also on that Padlet, you'll find another link to the NEPS webinar, which looks at the whole aspect of trauma-informed practice. And there are also a number of EAL webinar recordings there, which you might find useful. So I suppose just it's important to point you towards those. So thanks, folks. I'm going to hand you back there to Marcin.
Good, David. Okay, so again, looking at domain 3, the success criteria for varied learning environments. Again, if we turn these statements into questions when we're planning for the type of environments in which we're teaching on the summer camp, are we extending beyond the classroom? And I'll ask Alan and Kathy to come in on that in a moment, and Ciara perhaps. Are the children getting a chance to use inquiry-based experiential learning? And do we have a clear focus on the target language and the learning outcomes? So I suppose looking at the learning environments, Kathy, maybe I'll tossol me latsa there. Cad an sais tahi atá gutsa na timpachtaí ahrú ó like the compensatory agus mar sin there.
Yeah, it's few more on so on timpachta úsáid agus an siomh ahrú. We would have done similar to what Ciara alluded to, art outside, you know, using a local artist, Evelyn Crossan, as a stimulus, and under the tree canopy in the school garden as a setting. And then we also, as part of the Camp Gaeilge, went to a local heritage centre, and where they enacted a local legend, the story of a local legend, and we that was done through Van Gaeilge as well. The local heritage site in Ardagh had enacted that for us, so the children had the opportunity to engage with that, and again bringing them out into the local community. And kind of like Alan referenced, some of the children had never been, even though it was only a few minutes drive away, some of the children had never been there, and to bring them into the local community and extend the locality beyond the town limits as well.
Míle buíochas, Cathy, go hátach. Alan, leid smaointe go anseo.
Hi, yes, I suppose just without going outside the school grounds themselves, we have quite a large campus up in St. Joseph's in Dundalk, and what we have, we're lucky to have an active walkway which we use during the camp. You wouldn't have to have one yourself; like they're readily available online, and you can just laminate a couple of sheets and put them up around the school during the camp. I'm sure a lot of teachers are familiar with an active walkway already. If you're not, as I said, loads of examples online. But what you can do is various events are pinned up around the school. Children move in groups or on their own from station to station, and they will find on the wall during the active walkway an activity. It could be a STEM activity, it could be maths, it could be literacy. During the camp at Gaeilge, what we do is have a phrase or a word, jumbled letters, and they have to collect it as they move along throughout the active walkway, and they have to come up with the phrase or the word that we've been using throughout the day. And it's a great activity. They get running around, they're active, they really enjoy it. There's a bit of teamwork involved as well, being out, and again using the full school campus to its greatest potential to ensure that the kids are having a good time on the camp. And I'll just come in there, the people calling for me to sing out, I would not inflict that on anybody. I'm just conscious of my own staff. They are probably on this laughing at the thoughts of me singing to anyone is ridiculous. So I wouldn't inflict that on anyone, especially on a Tuesday evening we could be out. So I definitely wouldn't do that to anyone. So thanks for those comments, but I'll refrain from the singing if that's okay.
Okay, Alan, we'll take that. Go Margaret. August Ciara.
Yeah, just to say that because last year was my first year with the camp, we just went to a local astro pitch that was really useful for PE activities and so on. But I'm hoping to make use of by the money that we're spending on the bus to go to our local town in Ballina, to the local library, to maybe tie in a visit somewhere else. A coordinator that I've worked with before from an outside agency has offered a big games room in a local youth club, where they've really good baking facilities and loads of games and all of that would be better than what we have at school. So, and it's right beside the library. So I'm hoping to tie that in, just to make use of the money that we're spending on the bus.
Okay, so we can see from our three camp leaders there that we've used the school environment has been used. The inside the school, outside the school, and then the local community. So it's very important to extend the learning environment beyond the classroom, be it that we might use something like the kitchen for cooking, the class library, which we're coming to in a minute, or school library, or whether we use the grounds as we did there. And we can see that it's very important that there's a safe environment, and we saw that here as Astro, they're a very, very safe environment to do that. We said places that promote creativity is very important there. We saw with Alan using the school grounds for the walk, and looking at the whole outside area and bringing the children to a cultural area such as Cathy did. So excellent variety of different environments used there. So just the last slide that I want to talk to you about is making use of the library resources. And so you can see there inside as part, and you know from previous, those of you that have been involved in previous camps, that a very extremely important component of the summer camps over the years has been a library visit. And it's very important that when you are arranging your library visit, that it's pre-arranged well in advance. I think that was mentioned earlier by Dahi, that obviously there's no point rocking up there at 2:30 or 2:15 on a Tuesday afternoon if you haven't actually made the arrangements with the librarian beforehand in order to avail of the facilities of the library, and so that children will gain from it. Other activities that could be looked at would be maybe perhaps having a guest speaker come from the library to talk about the library, because the whole I suppose aim of this is to make the children aware of the resources that are available to them in the library, and also to encourage the children or the parents to become aware also. I hope I'm not going too fast. I'm just aware of time and the fact that we're coming close to the end. Borrowing books from the library to support the camp, and libraries love to actually, when schools come, to borrow books. Again, it's probably important, if you want a number of copies of the books, to let the library know beforehand, so that if they don't have this sufficient number of copies, that they can source those for you. Making use of the school library, like I mentioned a minute ago. And then looking at the next one, involving parents where possible. I just want to know, ask Kathy if she'd like to come in on that one there, please.
Thanks, Martin. Yeah, I suppose in terms of our library experiences, what we would have done would have been to visit the local library, as Dahi said, pre-arranged. They have enough Gaeilge in all libraries where they, in our experience, we've had a couple of different trips over the years. So they did storytelling Gaeilge for us one year, and 2 other years they organised an outside, say there was a kind of an art activity or a creative activity set up for us, and they're more than happy to engage. Like they're mad to get children into the library, to engage with schools, to develop that relationship. So they brought in the children, allowed them the opportunity to wander around, get a look at the library, get to know the ins and outs, get their borrowing cards if they needed to, all of that type of activity. And then they set up either the reading one year, the story reading for us, and the activities other years. But very, very helpful and keen to get involved and keen to welcome us in.
Kathy. And so we can see there the importance of involving both the parents and the children in the library resources that are available to us. Just to point you towards the PDST booklet, Children's Books for Wellbeing, and of course Dahi outlined very, very clearly at the beginning the importance of wellbeing as a huge component in the running of these summer camps. So just with that, I'm going to hand you over now to Aideen Earlton and Neil Kinta Kyokadina on there now.
So Gura Mila Magat Vorchin. And thanks to all of the team there for their invaluable inputs tonight. And thank you to all of you for sticking with us throughout. You are still in gross attendance at almost 600, and we really appreciate that and your commitment of time. As we've said during the course of tonight's session, you are the co-constructors and creators of your own camp, which are befitting to your own students and your unique context. So tonight's training is aimed at guiding and supporting rather than prescribing. We recognise and really appreciate the expertise and commitments of the teachers on board here, and we know from our experience how diligent and inventive you are in devising your camp programmes in tandem with your students and your parents. The planning and preparation stages, we got a lot of queries in about that. They are critical for bringing in all voices in the design of your bespoke camp, so we do really recommend you engage in that process. And we briefly draw you back on this slide to the 4 domains emphasised here this evening, and they should be your core focus in planning and designing your camps. We also encourage you to engage with and utilise the plethora of supports that we've put together for you. They're available on both Education Centre websites. It's a one-stop shop in terms of the summer camp portal, so you should find everything you need there. We also offer our support to you throughout the summer as you design and plan for your camps and as you roll out your camps. So you can contact the Education Centre here in Navan directly for anything that you may wish to be supported in. We wish you the absolute best with your camps. We know from previous years what a positive experience it is for us here, the team behind the scenes who put in so much work and time in their own time on a voluntary basis. So we might finish out with some of our facilitators, so Kathy and Kira and Alan. So just Ravashin, Beidir Ultan will aim Brescia Alugagan Rev Derek on Gardlan and Ish.
Neil really ach ma vile mulle gachena handig on Nacht. As you correctly said, we'll finish up with Kathy and Alan and Kira. And there was a request in that they would have a focal score of, you know, if you'd one piece of advice before we finish up, what would it be? So I think that's a good question to finish up on. So if Alan and Kathy and Kira could throw in their tuppence halfpenny on that one, that'd be super. Fad a chur fáil doing agus who a gobergadine and yacht Mil Magat AD. Alan, have you-
I'll come in there, Ulton.
yeah, Kathy, great stuff.
Yeah, just I'd say embrace it, enjoy it. A really positive experience for anyone that's new to it. I know I recognize a lot of the names, so lots of experienced camp facilitators online, but for anyone new, just enjoy it.
Sound advice, Kathy. I think Alan may have gone off to look at a certain goal over in Poland. Are you there, Alan?
I'm a huge Stephen Kenny fan, and I'll be absolutely delighted to hear that we are 1-up, but I haven't seen the goal, which is apparently fantastic. So we will be all making a run for the couch in a minute. But no, I will just say from a teacher's perspective, DEIS camps have always been hugely beneficial to me as a teacher, to my school, to the parents. You learn so much from them, leadership skills, young teachers out there, give it a go, bring a bit of energy and enthusiasm to it. It's a very enjoyable experience for the kids and yourself. I will say there's teachers out there and they sit around and wait for the visit, and the talk of visitors coming kind of scares people. Don't wait all week for a visit. Don't teach the test and say, go out and enjoy it. A bit of pre-planning is all you need to do to make sure you have the camp in order, and then just go and let yourself and the kids enjoy it. It's a positive experience. You need to bring a lot of energy on the day and be ready and up for it. But as I said, let your guard down. Just if you have a reference to your DEIS plan, and that's what you really need to do, like something that you're going to work on in September. If you introduce it during the camp, that's what we tend to do, and try things out. And if they don't work, then go back to school. That's not going to fly in school. And if they do work, it's great, because some of the children have been on the camp and they've got a head start on the other children, and you're able to use them as exemplars in September moving forward. So I'd say best luck with a whole lot of it. Enjoy it. And as I say, we'll be available during the summer for any questions that new camps have in terms of what they're doing. So Cormila Magov Galera, August Sloanev.
Magatain, Alan, and Ciara over in Mayo.
Yeah, I don't really have anything more to add than what Alan and Kathy have said, just to enjoy it. The children in my school really enjoyed it last year, and all were so keen to do it. When the letter went out again, the parents were keen for them to do it. So it was just that it's different to school. It is trying to teach literacy and numeracy, but I suppose for us, we had the benefit of having 12 in a group, compared to teaching a multi-class in a Jesuit school was just fantastic, that you could just do so many more, much more active learning outside and so on. So just to make it fun for everyone, and I think the teachers enjoyed it too.
Well, I tell you, what came from our three practitioners there was enjoyment, and I suppose that's key to the whole thing. And thanks so much to Dahi and to Marcin and to Cruhor and David for giving all the concrete stuff that we need going forward. But I think key is that word that you said there, enjoyment. If we're not enjoying it and the kids aren't enjoying it, we're doing something wrong. So Fogame Hernashin Egatusa Anish Aidin the Creek Kurdish and Ihana.
Gurmagat Ulton Tom Fos ag Fragruni Kestana it's Q&A Fos, and just one there about the EEL resources, just to nod to the Padlet there. We've got all of the resources, and any upcoming resources, they will all be added to those portals. If you just check out, it's probably the best place, port of call is our Education Centre websites, because it's an all-in portal there. You should find everything you're looking for there, and we will place the slides on there in the coming days. Also to reiterate that NEPS webinar, and our extreme appreciation, thanks to NEPS as well in their preparation of that is also an important strand of your training. So please do take time to look at those recordings. Final word of thanks to everybody. Go off and enjoy your football, and go off and enjoy your evening, and the very, very best of luck with your camps. We wish you all the best.
On Gocton.
Slán Mila Magav.